I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, et cetera. You pointed out the only true use case for it is criminals, drug traffickers, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance, and that is a use case because it is somewhat anonymous, not fully, and because you can move money instantaneously, and because it doesn't go through, as you mentioned, all these systems have been built up over many years, know your customer, sanctions, OFAC, they can get bypass all of that. If I was the government, I'd close it down.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, having a look at Bitcoin, we haven't really done too much after having this massive move, although it was quite a massive move, basically from $25,000 all the way up to $44,500. Currently, we're consolidating within the range of around 42 to 44. You can see we're still sort of just going sideways, but there has obviously been a lot of crypto FUD that has come out this week. If you've been paying any attention, you see Jamie Dimon coming out saying that, we should ban crypto, Elizabeth Warren calling it one of the biggest modern threats ever, and it seems quite convenient that all of a sudden everybody has all of these opinions conveniently as Bitcoin is yet again outperforming virtually every other asset currently. Now, obviously, this is a threat to these type of people. We'll go into why in this video, but there is also something that we need to discuss, something that, really a lot of people are not talking about, some very surprising data. And, the unfortunate thing is that when you do have these traditional type of people who speak out, like, for example, Jamie Dimon, I'll tell you something that happened really quick before we start the video. My dad, he's actually down here on vacation. He's visiting us in Florida, and one of his friends called him up on the phone and said, "Hey, is your son still doing that Bitcoin and crypto thing? He might want to reassess his situation of his allocation to Bitcoin because, with everything that's going on, things could get really crazy. What happens if what hits the fan?" And it's funny how as soon as these traditional, type of people start speaking out, the fear hits, right? But what I want to talk about today is why we shouldn't actually be fooled and why they may actually be trying to, and I'm going to put this in quotes, kill crypto, because the question is, do they really want to kill crypto? There's a lot I want to talk about today. In fact, just on the Bitcoin chart alone, there's something that Bitcoin has not done in 5 years, except the last time that this happened for Bitcoin, things were very different, and the implications this time could be absolutely incredible. So that's pretty much what I want to talk about today, guys. Oh, and also one other thing I wanted to talk about was, the big BlackRock secret that no one's really discussing. So if all that sounds good to you today, you know what to do. If you're not subscribed, we're going to cover a lot of stuff that's been happening over this week. And before I dive into it, I also just wanted to point out that currently in this range that we're at, we did have a Meta Signals possible long entry. Now, I'm sharing this with you pretty much live as it's happening. The reason I'm doing this is because they're actually getting rid of these free signals in 4 days. So I'm interested to see. Now, this is flashing at around 43,500 with a downside stop loss at around 42 with an upside potential of around 45,700. Now, just recently, they did have a very good call on Filecoin. You could see all 3 of these targets actually did get hit. So again, before we start the video, I'm just letting you guys know, these free signals are going to be gone in 4 days. And if you do want access lifetime, these NFTs, they are in fact limited to 2,000 and they are increasing 6% every 100 that are sold. So, just obviously, we've had really good success with it. A lot of people have been seeing how these signals play out. So I'm just giving you guys a friendly reminder, 4 more days for these signals. So let's dive in. Let's see what's going on right here. So where should we start? Should we start with the possible Bitcoin, outcomes? Well, we've talked about this. We'll get back to this. But I think what everybody wants to discuss right now was what had seriously gone on with this sort of meeting where Jamie Dimon came out. And if you didn't see it, I'm just going to replay the clip. This is what he had to say.
I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, et cetera. You pointed out the only true use case for it is criminals, drug traffickers, anti-money laundering, tax avoidance, and that is a use case because it is somewhat anonymous, not fully, and because you can move money instantaneously, and because it doesn't go through, as you mentioned, all these systems have been built up over many years, know your customer, sanctions, OFAC, they can get bypass all of that. If I was the government, I'd close it down.
Okay.
Now, Luke Martin actually points out some context. The video hits a little bit different when you learn that JP Morgan was the banking partner for Jeffrey Epstein's operation, largest trafficking case in history, source of funds a mystery, client for 15 years. But I thought Bitcoin was the problem, right? And of course, you have Elizabeth Warren coming out and chiming in with her 2 cents.
There's a new threat out there. It's crypto, and it is being used for terrorist financing. It is being used for drug trafficking. North Korea is using it to pay for about half of its nuclear weapons program. We can't allow that to continue.
Now, I just got to throw it out there. Does anybody actually have any evidence that that's what they're doing with their money? I mean, she says that, but do we have proof? I mean, everything's transparent on the blockchain, right? Or are we really just grabbing and reaching for anything that's going to create some kind of sensational FUD around Bitcoin? Now, of course, there could be the conspiracy that they just want to buy cheap and they feel like they've missed out, right? There is that old saying, when the retail misses the boat, they miss the boat. But when the institutions miss the boat, they bring the boat back. But the question is, are they going to be able to do it this time? And also, speaking just real quick on the topic of, issues with banks versus Bitcoin, here's a couple headlines just for fun, guys. JP Morgan settles Jeffrey Epstein lawsuit with U.S. Virgin Islands for $75 million. JP Morgan hit with $200 million in fines for letting employees use WhatsApp to evade regulators' reach. JP Morgan grossly negligent over $875 million in Nigerian bank transfers, UK court is told. JP Morgan Chase & Company agrees to pay $920 million in connection with schemes to defraud precious metals and U.S. Treasuries markets. Oh wait, but I forgot, guys. Bitcoin is the problem, right? Bitcoin, which provides self-custody, sovereignty. Yes, it is borderless. Yes, it is actually outside of the reach of these people. And, that's the thing. China tried to ban it. Maybe they did. What happened? Well, I don't know if you remember the China FUD. We had Bitcoin fall 50%, and then a few months later, it completely regained all of his losses. I mean, look what happened with FTX. We went all the way down to 15,000, and yet Bitcoin still was able to cross above $44,000, right? I mean, it's just crazy because when you look at really what these guys are talking about, JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon calling Bitcoin a fraud one day, and then all of a sudden the next day, this came out. JP Morgan could launch a spot Bitcoin ETF per co-founder of ETF Institutional, Nate Geraci. So again, don't listen to what these people say. If I had, and this is speaking from experience, guys, if I had listened to the FUD all these years, starting on my journey over 7 years ago, if I had listened to the people that told me that Bitcoin was rat poison squared, or that it was fool's gold, or that it was a Ponzi, or that it was only used by criminals back when, I started buying at around $2,000, God bless the people that bought earlier than that, where would I be today, right? So it's kind of hard sometimes to ignore all of this, that is coming out. But where have we had a situation like this before where Jamie Dimon says one thing and then does something different? Oh, I remember the great FUD High, buy low. Now, if you're new to crypto, you may not have seen this video. OGs, you've seen this one. But if you're new, I'll play the clip.
With crypto, yes. I know personally, people that would have gotten in or stayed in if these people weren't saying what they're saying.
Right. And so this has really been extremely egregious. So on September 12th, Jamie Dimon says Bitcoin is a fraud. He says he'll fire any one of his traders buying Bitcoin. Bitcoin drops 24%. When Jamie Dimon speaks,
people listen.
So that weekend, we found out that the largest buyer of a Bitcoin fund that's in Europe that buys physical Bitcoin, right? The largest buyer was Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan. And that's not illegal.
He says it's a fraud.
It says he'll fire anyone that buys it. Yes.
And at the same time, his company is buying it.
His company is buying it.
It's just, so unethical.
Right.
So if this is what Jamie Dimon was doing all those years ago, do you really believe what he's saying now? We know that it's really more of a threat to the traditional institutions, right? When there's fees on Ethereum, or when you're sending stable coins, or if I send Bitcoin to you or you send Bitcoin to me, there is no middleman. The banks don't like that. They don't get their cuts. They don't get to do the overdraft fees if there's, not enough in the account. You know, banks make their money by taking your money and lending it out to others, which is hilarious because the thing that, you know, all these regulators are pissed that these exchanges and their funds and you can't commingle and this and that. Well, what are they doing with our money? Oh, but you know, it's okay when they print the money, but if we do it, it's counterfeiting. It's okay when they, you know, do fractional reserve banking, but if you don't have the reserves on your crypto exchange, well, then you're the criminal, right? And it was interesting because Vivek Ramaswamy was actually asked about this, and he had something to say.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you've praised cryptocurrency like Bitcoin as an opt-out from our, quote, broken financial architecture, and you oppose efforts to regulate it. The head of the largest international crypto exchange just pleaded guilty to allowing his platform to launder money for terrorists, including Hamas. You say your cryptocurrency plan will, quote, ensure economic freedom for Americans, end quote. Won't it also ensure economic freedom for fraudsters, criminals, and terrorists?
Look, fraudsters, criminals, and terrorists have been defrauding people for a long time. Our regulations need to catch up with the current moment. The fact that SBF was able to do what he did at FTX shows that whatever they have as the current framework isn't working. And I think it is nothing short of embarrassing that Gary Gensler, the current leader of the SEC, in front of Congress, could not even say whether Ethereum counted as a regulated security or not. And so I think that this is just another example of the administrative state gone too far. Here's the dirty little secret in American politics today. The people who we elect to run the government are not the ones who are even actually running the government. It is the bureaucrats in those three-letter agencies.
So again, I've said this time and time again, it's not the tool, it's the person who uses it to outright say, oh, we're gonna ban crypto. Oh, right, because you know, the war on drugs didn't bring more drugs. The war on terror didn't bring more terror. The war on Bitcoin is probably only gonna make more people wanna run and turn to Bitcoin. More on that in a bit, but as you can see, the SEC jumping out here 31 minutes ago at the time of making this video, posting this, investor alert, exercise caution with crypto asset securities. Even though they don't want to actually tell us what is and isn't a security, you know, like literally Gary Gensler couldn't say if Ethereum was or was not. Apparently, we're just supposed to guess it. But what's so interesting about crypto adoption is if you actually look at the data, it can be hard to get out of that Western sort of mentality. But if you just have a look right here, look at this right here, guys. Cryptocurrency is currently legal in 119 countries and 4 British overseas territories. This means that more than half of the world's countries have already legalized cryptocurrency. 64.7% of the countries that have legalized crypto are emerging and developing countries from Asia and African continents. So these people are turning to crypto out of desperation, out of a better source, out of opting out of the traditional system because the traditional system does not have your interest in mind, right? However, out of the 119 countries that legaled cryptocurrency, about 20 have imposed bank bans. That's around 16.8%. You can see them actually in the restricted areas right here. And, you know, these obviously don't allow, you know, institutions to interact with cryptocurrency exchange or users. But I don't want to say too much right now, but there is a very, very large project that, and this isn't like a token or anything, and these guys are on the brink of solving this. And I can't really say too much right now, but when this does come out, there's going to be virtually no way that they can tell you what you can or can't do with your crypto. I will tell you more about that as it unfolds. It's probably going to be one of the biggest game changers when it comes to crypto and banking. But, you know, again, they want you to stay within the traditional system. They don't want you to opt out of it. They want their fees, they want their control, they want their surveillance. And, you know, of course, they're going to use all these different tactics to, you know, create this fear mongering around crypto. But I mean, how well did it really work? You know, Bitcoin has surged 166% since the European Central Bank said that it was on the road to irrelevance. So right back here, November 30th of 2022, you know, Bitcoin's last stand. Yeah, Bitcoin's last stand. It's literally up 160 and maybe even more percent at you know, at the time that you may be watching this. But yeah, Bitcoin is the thing you should stay away from, right? That's the bad thing. We should probably just put all of our money in treasuries, which can't even outpace inflation. I mean, I don't even know the numbers today. What are you getting, 4% on a 2-year? Is that what it is? I don't know. What is inflation? Let's say they even get it down to 3%. Well, if it's 3% year over year, right? And then you have 4% every 2 years, you're still not outpacing inflation. So, I mean, I guess it's a hedge, I suppose, but like, is that really where you want to put your money and watch it just completely, wash away to hyperinflation? No, a lot of people are waking up to that. In fact, I think Gary Cardone, you may know him, he's Grant Cardone's brother. He actually put it really simply. I really like this. This is something I would say, but let's let Gary have the floor for a little bit.
Somebody asked me the question, how the heck has Bitcoin been able to withstand so many attacks? I mean, let's try to go through some of them just off the top of my head. The last 18 months, Terra Luna, Celsius, Galaxy, our buddy FTX. People had the ability to change the planet and they blew it because they got greedy, started cutting corners. We have senators and congressmen that are 1,000 years old that want to live in the past. They don't want to move into the future. It's scary for them. We've had Warren, what's her name? The Senator Warren, part Indian, part white. I don't even know what she is, but she'll be whatever she needs to be. She's trying to kill Bitcoin. And where are we at? We're at $42,000. And it seems to me like there is more demand than there is supply. People are catching on to this. We're hearing rumors now that you have large money from the UAE moving into this market. It was only a matter of time. Whether it's true or not, it is coming, okay? And these people are going to deploy $50 million wedges. They are not going to deploy 500 grand, 50 grand. You got to remember, this market has really been led by retailers, and every industry is built in this manner.
So the reality is, if the US wants to do some crazy stuff, if they really do want to ban it, could that create some FUD? Could that affect the price? Absolutely. It definitely would. But we already know that they've come out and said that they're not going to outright ban it. It's been supported by so many different politicians. And of course, I'm not saying you should trust really any politician, really. What are their real motives, But again, it all comes down to adoption curve. Like Jurian Timmer points out, we have all these things, motor vehicles, telephones, radios, televisions, VCRs, right? They all follow this sort of S-curve adoption. And that's exactly where Bitcoin is right now. And don't forget, a lot of these things, these other guys did not like, right? Because it is something that threatens the existing system, right? Banks don't like Bitcoin. Why don't banks like Bitcoin? Because Bitcoin threatens the system. How come the horse and buggies, didn't like the cars? Remember the FUD? I don't know if you read about when the motor vehicle first came out. They were like, it's so unsafe. It needs 3 operators. It needs someone to drive, someone to handle the mechanics. And then they wanted a guy to walk in front with a flag. It was ridiculous, right? The telephone, electricity, right? Electricity, it's going to kill you. It's going to shock you, right? All these different things that were coming out. Blockbuster hated Netflix, right? Taxis hate Uber. Right? But where did that go today, right? We all know that you either got to get with it or you're going to get lost in the dust, brother, right? I mean, even over here, you had Brian Kelly on CNBC and, talking about Bitcoin being more scarce than gold. And this is why so many people are turning to it, because it is the hardest and soundest money the world has ever seen.
Question about the halving. I've heard it called the halvening or the halving, but either one. We're getting to that in April, I think, right? Yep. And that's been a bullish thing before. I sort of wonder, is it the same thing, though? Is that already getting priced in, or is there something technical that actually happens that would make it be priced in closer to the event?
So what we've seen historically is that the 12 to 16 months after a halving is the best performance of Bitcoin. So that's what everybody's thinking about. This time might be different because the price of Bitcoin's higher. We now only have, I think it's 900 Bitcoin a day that come out, so that gets cut in half. It's not a lot of Bitcoin, but what it does do is it makes Bitcoin more scarce than gold. So for the first time in history, you have an asset that is more scarce than gold.
In what way more scarce?
Let's call it a stock to flow ratio. So the amount of Bitcoin mined every year divided by the amount outstanding, same with gold. And now there'll be, quote unquote, less Bitcoin than gold mined on a relative basis.
And I think we could see it pretty much reflected in those who truly understand. You have MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor, just buying and buying and buying, right? You have Bitcoin legal tender currently in 2 countries. Who knows? Maybe it'll get added to Argentina at some point. It's not official yet. Michael Saylor posted this. He said, how high would Bitcoin need to rise before you would consider selling? You have 31% saying 100,000, 18,250, 14,500, and a whopping 36.3% saying $1 million to never. Now that sounds pretty crazy. I'm never going to sell my Bitcoin, but maybe it gets to the point where it is so bad that why would you even want to actually turn your money into or your Bitcoin into dollars anyway, right? And here's the interesting thing about BlackRock. Like Seth had pointed out, BlackRock had launched a private Bitcoin trust back in August of 2022. They have been accumulating Bitcoin in the absolute lows with the best algorithm that was created on Earth. But don't worry, there's always room for more Bitcoin. Have you ever heard a wealthy billionaire say, nope, I've had enough, I've made enough money, that's it, enough is enough? Don't worry, it will never be enough. There aren't enough Bitcoin for everybody, especially the wealthy. And we know that right now there's only about, I think it's 2 million Bitcoin available on the exchanges. And we know that if the UAE rumor is true, if all these guys want to come in with these billions of dollars, where are they going to get their Bitcoin from? Right? Now, obviously, we have situations, for example, CryptoCon saying money is pouring into Bitcoin at rates not seen since the last cycle top. And only 5 other times in Bitcoin's history, things are getting heated. Now, someone had actually pointed out to me that Ollie Charts said that around 20,000 Bitcoin have been sent to known crypto exchange wallets in the past 5 days, worth over $880 million. So we've had $880 million in Bitcoin being sent to exchanges. Now, normally, I would say this is maybe a little bit of caution. And, we'll get to the charts in a bit, why we might be getting to some of these areas. But yes, obviously, when you're depositing your Bitcoin on exchanges, it usually means maybe you're fearful or you're looking to take profits. Hey, maybe this Jamie Dimon, Elizabeth Warren news is freaking out some of the older investors. Maybe they're looking to sell. Who knows? But again, if we switch over to the bigger picture here, this is what I'm talking about. You could see right over here that Bitcoin is at its lowest levels that we have not seen since way back here at the very end of basically 2018. So in 5 years, we have not seen Bitcoin this low on exchanges. But the difference this time is that not only is the price much higher, not only is there clearly more demand, we have the SEC, potentially approving this Bitcoin ETF at some point. We know all this money's coming in. We have these rumors from the UAE, yet we have the same amount that we had 5 years ago when nobody was paying attention. This is where you get these supply shock squeezes. This is where you get these gamma squeezes like we talked about, where price could theoretically just go parabolic, right? And at some point, it's not going to matter what goes on in the US. Yes, the US has a lot of influence, I'm not going to lie. But at some point, it's not going to matter. It's already starting to not matter to a lot of these different guys, right? So that is just something we need to pay attention to. And the ETF is just continuing. You have Van Eck submitting their update. This is their 5th time that they've done it. They're actually having talks with the SEC. They actually have their ticker they have their tickle hodl. No, their ticker hodl, which is obviously, we know why they picked that, and you're also seeing, for example, over here, Fidelity Spot ETF has officially been listed on the DTCC under the ticker FBTC, as well as the fact that we've also clearly had, Cathie Wood coming out saying that for the longest time, they basically couldn't even get in contact with the SEC, and now they're actually having talks with them, and the SEC chose not to appeal in their case. So they're losing ground. They don't have any more reason to ban it. So what are they doing? They're just creating FUD. They're picking from anywhere. Oh, these guys are using it to fund this, and yeah, they're building missiles. It's like, do you even have any proof of that? And literally, let's just be real. Bitcoin's only existed for 15 years. What do you think everyone's been using for the rest of history? Dollars? Guys, so is Bitcoin really the problem? No, I would say not. So with that being said, I do want to just hop in super quick, have a look at the charts, guys, because we, realistically, I did say that once we get out of this blue zone area, we are in a little bit short-term overheated. I mean, we've literally been, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So basically, in a nutshell, for 2 straight months, Bitcoin has been moving to the upside. Now, I actually personally still believe that some of these higher targets are possible. If you look at the volume range, it does, kind of show us around 47,400. We have some other interest. And, not to just point out the confluence here, but we have the very reliable 0.618, which is literally at around $48,700, $800. And historically, Bitcoin really does try to push up to that level once we get past the 0.5. So will we make it to that level? Obviously, I don't know. Statistics and probability say that we probably will get to that level. Again, which is quite interesting because these targets are quite reasonable right here, up around 45,600 that Meta Signals was actually pointing out. But again, yeah, could we get up to around that, 0.61848? Yeah. And, just to kind of point out how crazy it could be. At current levels, if Bitcoin was to fall down to this parabolic bottom, let's just say tomorrow or next week we have this just dump down to the bottom, that would be about a 27% fall for Bitcoin, only to retest on the parabolic trend at around $31,900, which would be incredibly still bullish, and it would be an amazing opportunity to reaccumulate and potentially put in some more of those longs. There was obviously the situation that we do have a CME futures gap at around 39,600. Which is telling me, maybe in the short term, we could potentially have, that retracement. That is something I'd be careful about. But all the long-term charts, the Super Guppy, the RSI, the MACD, everything is showing us that we are entering into the next paradigm of the cycle. Now, generally before the halving, we don't usually have these, insane blow-off tops. But again, we do have to pay attention to that, because if we look at these, and I know some of these names are silly, the Super Guppy, the Magic Bands, I don't know who names these things, right? But, if we have a look at the Magic Bands, they've been very, very, very accurate. And regardless of whether or not that you think Bitcoin essentially needs to have this pullback or not. Generally speaking, unless you're in a bear market or you're having some kind of a, black swan event like we did with COVID, once you sort of test this mid-band and you get above it, eventually it tends to act as that support, right? You could see it was resistance, and then here it became support, and that's where we took off. Well, if I zoom in right here, what are we seeing? Resistance, a little bit of resistance, and then boom, we broke above it. So this blue area right here, 48,187, that does basically coincide with the 0.618. It also coincides with our major move of the falling wedge. So yeah, again, is it possible to get to around 47 to 48? I do. After that point, I would potentially look for a cool off. But, again, looking at the green Gaussian, looking at the potential of breaking these downtrends and forming these, the wedges, I would say that, even if we were to go to the top of that, that's around 49,000. Bitcoin does have a history of sort of going farther and harder than you think it's going to. So, again, I would be shocked if this really does continue as a parabolic rally, but I also would be shocked if Bitcoin really traded much lower than 30,000 on the cool-off period. The lowest I could say would be 25, because 25, essentially, just to kind of draw this live for you guys right here, 25, as you guys could see, would be this Terra Luna crash, this resistance, the resistance flip support, and then the resistance flip support again. Now, these are 4 points of contact. So for me, that would be enough. And again, if we did do that, we would fall out of this wedge. So I think it's unlikely that you see Bitcoin go to 25,000. I think, believe it or not, a retracement back down to around 30 to 31,000 is quite possible. But again, guys, having a look at this level, once we do break above this fair value, we tend to kind of sometimes, maybe dance a little sideways on it. But you can see right here, this is still putting us, sometime, just this is a hypothetical, let's say November 8th of 2025, you could be looking at a low of 94,000 to a high of $180,000. So again, I don't know if I'd let all this FUD get into my head. Even if we did have that 30% correction, you're still talking Bitcoin being above $30,000. So it's all about perspective. You just got to kind of just weigh it out, guys. And again, I know this video was a little bit long. I didn't have a chance to update you guys with my other videos, but I just wanted to say that we have seen this before. We have seen the FUD. I've been in this space for a long time. It can be hard when you're seeing people talk about this. You're having people come in and tell you, hey, you should worry about what these guys are saying. Well, again, had I listened to all these people that had been telling me I don't want to my family didn't talk to me for like a year and a half. I mean, it was crazy. Like, I had friends laughing at me, calling me stupid, especially after the 2018 crash down. And what happened? We went from 20 down to 3, all the way up to 70. So again, guys, I just wanted to make this video just to, kind of just let you guys know, if you want to sell, that's fine. Always take profits, but again, what are you taking profits into? If you're taking profits in dollars and you're sitting in dollars, unless you're looking to maybe buy back cheaper, what are you really going to do with it? Buy some bonds, put it in a bank, you know what I'm saying? And watch it get inflated away. So anyway, guys, that's it for me. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. Kind of a crazy video today. It's just, I hate when I see this FUD. It makes me kind of a little frustrated. I kind of want to just talk about experience and let you guys know that I do think that legitimately, I do think there is still a possibility of a pullback to the $30,000 to $31,000 area. But I don't see why we couldn't go up to that sort of 47-ish, 45, 47-ish, maybe even 48 area. There's a lot of things on the charts that are pointing to that. And again, if we do have the ETF approval, if we do have these big funds coming in from the Middle East that are looking to buy, as I've shown you on the charts, where are they going to get it from, right? So supply, demand, I mean, come on, that's like page chapter 1 economics, right? So that's it for me. Thank you so much for coming back to the channel. You guys rock. You're the reason that I make these videos. If you do want to learn how to trade, I do recommend checking out Apex. They are completely decentralized. I also have some other exchanges I've been talking to and working with that are really, really user-friendly. Very high withdrawal limits. If you don't feel comfortable using a decentralized, that's up to you. But again, check that out, guys. Until next time, stay crypto. And of course, peace out.